Houdini died at 52 doing a water breath hold.
But I thought he got punched in the stomach or something.
He did before, and then he should have gone to the hospital because he didn't feel so great. But instead, he did his show, did the water tank, did the breath hold, collapsed when he came off the stage, was rushed to the hospital, and then he died.
October 31st, 1926, Halloween, the Princess Theatre in Montreal, Canada. Harry Houdini, the most famous magician in the world, lies in a hospital bed fighting for his life. In 24 hours, he'll be dead at age 52. But the story of how he got there starts days earlier with a college student, a dressing room conversation, and a series of punches that would kill a legend. This isn't a mysterious death. This isn't a trick gone wrong. This is the documented final day of Harry Houdini's life. The medical records, the witness testimonies, the exact sequence of events that led from a backstage encounter to a death that shocked the world. What happened in those final 24 hours reveals something crucial about Houdini. He was dying, and he knew it, but he kept performing anyway, kept pushing, kept refusing to admit weakness, because for Houdini, stopping meant admitting defeat, and he'd rather die than do that. The sequence that killed Houdini actually started 4 days earlier. A college student named J. Gordon Whitehead visited Houdini backstage after a performance in Montreal. Whitehead was an amateur boxer and had heard about Houdini's famous claim that he could withstand any punch to his stomach. Houdini made this claim frequently, would challenge audience members to hit him as hard as they could. His abdominal muscles were extraordinarily strong from years of training. He could tense them to absorb impacts that would injure normal people. It was part of his strongman image. Whitehead asked Houdini if the stories were true. Could he really take any punch? Houdini, lying on a couch in his dressing room reading mail, said yes, confirmed that his stomach muscles were like iron when properly tensed. What happened next is documented by multiple witnesses who were in the room. Whitehead, without warning, started punching Houdini in the abdomen. Hard punches, multiple strikes, rapid succession. Houdini was completely unprepared. He was lying down, relaxed, not tensed. The punches landed before he could properly brace his abdominal muscles. He tried to signal Whitehead to stop, but the student delivered several more blows before finally backing off. Houdini waved it off, said he was fine. The witnesses in the room said he looked pale and uncomfortable, but insisted it was nothing. He had a show that night, had to keep moving, had to maintain the image of invincibility. But he wasn't fine. Those punches ruptured his appendix, the organ that sits in the lower right abdomen. When an appendix ruptures, bacteria flood into the abdominal cavity. Without immediate treatment, the infection spreads. The condition is called peritonitis, and in 1926, it was frequently fatal. Houdini didn't go to a doctor, didn't seek medical attention. He had shows scheduled, commitments to fulfill. His entire identity was built on being tougher than everyone else. Admitting injury meant showing weakness, so he ignored the pain and kept performing. For 3 days after the punches, Houdini continued his tour, performed show after show, traveling between cities. The pain in his abdomen was getting worse. He developed a fever, started looking visibly ill, but he refused to stop. His wife Bess and his assistant knew something was wrong, begged him to see a doctor. Houdini refused, said it was just soreness from the punches, that he'd performed through worse, that the show must go on. By the time Houdini arrived in Detroit for his next scheduled performance, he was barely functional, fever spiking, severe abdominal pain, unable to stand up straight, but he went on stage anyway, performed a full show, collapsed immediately after. That's when doctors were finally called. They examined Houdini and immediately knew it was serious. His appendix had ruptured days ago. The infection had spread throughout his abdominal cavity. His body was in septic shock. He needed emergency surgery immediately. Houdini was rushed to Detroit's Grace Hospital. Surgeons operated, removing the ruptured appendix and trying to clean out the infection, but it was too late. The peritonitis had advanced too far. In the days before antibiotics, there was no way to stop the bacterial infection from spreading. After the surgery, Houdini was told the situation was grave, that he might not survive. Even then, lying in a hospital bed, he talked about getting back on stage, about honoring his commitments, about not letting audiences down. That brings us to the final 24 hours, October 30th turning into October 31st. Halloween, the day Houdini would die. The hospital room is filled with family. Bess Houdini is at his bedside. His brother Houdini is there, close friends and assistants. Everyone knows the end is near, but nobody wants to say it. Houdini drifts in and out of consciousness. The infection has overwhelmed his system. His organs are shutting down. Doctors have done everything possible with 1926 medical technology. Now it's just a matter of time. When Houdini is lucid, he talks about his mother. She died years earlier, and Houdini never fully recovered from the loss. He spent years trying to contact her through seances and spiritualism, ultimately becoming a crusader against fake mediums. Now, dying himself, he wonders if he'll see her again. He also talks about his legacy, about the tricks he never got to perform, the escapes he was planning, the exposés of fraudulent spiritualists he wanted to complete. His mind is still working, even as his body fails. Bess holds his hand, tells him it's okay to rest, that he's done enough, that his legacy is secure. Houdini squeezes her hand back but doesn't respond. The pain is too intense for much conversation. Throughout the day, visitors come and go, fellow performers, theater managers, friends. Some stay for minutes, others for hours, everyone paying respects to a man they know won't survive the night. Medical staff monitor Houdini constantly, check his vital signs, administer what limited pain relief is available, but they're not treating him anymore. They're managing his death, trying to keep him comfortable as the end approaches. Houdini's temperature continues to spike. The infection is everywhere. His kidneys are failing. His heart is struggling. The doctors tell Bess privately that he has hours at most. As evening turns to night, Houdini becomes less responsive. The periods of consciousness get shorter. The periods of unconsciousness get longer. His breathing becomes labored, irregular. Bess never leaves his side, holds his hand, talks to him even when he can't respond, tells him about their life together, their travels, the incredible things he accomplished, trying to give him peace in his final moments. Around 11 p.m., Houdini opens his eyes one more time, looks at Bess, tries to say something but can't form the words. She leans in close, tells him she loves him, that it's okay to let go. Houdini's eyes close, his breathing slows, the medical staff check his pulse. It's weakening rapidly. Everyone in the room knows these are the final minutes. At 1:26 a.m. on Halloween, November the 1st, 1926, Harry Houdini's heart stops. Doctors confirm he's gone. The greatest escape artist in history couldn't escape death. The room is silent. Bess breaks down. Hardin puts his arm around her. The medical staff step back respectfully. History has just changed. The man who defined modern magic is dead. News of Houdini's death spreads quickly. By morning, newspapers around the world are running the story. The headlines are dramatic. Houdini dead. Master escape artist finally trapped. Death claims Houdini. The circumstances of his death become public immediately. The story about the college student punching him, the ruptured appendix, the refusal to seek medical treatment, the decision to keep performing despite mortal injury. Some newspapers frame it as tragic, a preventable death. If only Houdini had seen a doctor immediately after the punches. Others frame it as heroic, a performer so dedicated he literally worked himself to death rather than disappoint audiences. The magic community is devastated. Houdini wasn't just famous, he was the standard, the performer everyone else measured themselves against. His death feels like the end of an era. Theories start immediately. Some people claim Houdini was murdered, that the college student was sent by Houdini's enemies, spiritualists he'd exposed as frauds. Investigation finds no evidence of conspiracy. Whitehead was just an overeager fan who punched too hard at the wrong time. Others claim Houdini's death was inevitable, that years of dangerous stunts had weakened his body, that the appendix rupture was just the final injury in a lifetime of physical abuse. Medical experts say there's some truth to this. Houdini's body had endured extraordinary stress throughout his career. But the most common interpretation is the simplest. Houdini died because he refused to admit weakness, because his identity was so tied to being indestructible that seeking medical help felt like surrender. He chose performance over health and paid with his life. The funeral is massive. Thousands attend. Fellow magicians perform tributes. Bess is barely able to function. The coffin is the same one Houdini used in his buried alive escape routines. Even in death, he's connected to his tricks. Houdini is buried in the Machpelah Cemetery in Queens, New York. The grave is marked with a bust of Houdini. To this day, magicians visit to pay respects. It's become a pilgrimage site for performers worldwide. But Houdini's story doesn't end with his burial, because before he died, he made a pact with Bess, a code, a secret message that only they knew. He promised that if it was possible to communicate after death, he would send her that message. It was his final test of spiritualism. For 10 years after Houdini's death, Bess held annual seances on Halloween trying to contact him. She worked with mediums, attended spiritualist gatherings, desperately wanted to hear the code, to know that some part of Houdini survived. The message never came. No medium could produce the code. No seance resulted in legitimate contact. After a decade, Bess gave up, declared that if Houdini could reach her, he would have. His silence was proof that spiritualism was fraudulent, just as he'd always claimed. That Halloween tradition continues today. Magicians worldwide hold seances on October 31st, attempting to contact Houdini. It's partly tribute, partly tradition, partly inside joke. Nobody expects him to answer. But the ritual honors his memory and his crusade against fake spiritualists.
Because of the timing of Houdini's death on Halloween and the annual seances they do to bring him back, it's had a weird consequence, and that is throughout history, particularly in the last 30 years, His grave site has been the terrible victim of vandalism.
The circumstances of Houdini's death have been analyzed for nearly a century. Medical journals have examined the case. Could he have survived with modern medicine? Almost certainly. Appendicitis is easily treatable with antibiotics and prompt surgery. What killed Houdini in 1926 would be a minor medical issue today. But that's not really the point. Houdini didn't die from appendicitis. He died from refusal. Refusal to admit injury, refusal to show weakness, refusal to prioritize health over performance. His psychology killed him as much as the infection. That refusal is both his greatest strength and fatal flaw. It's what made him legendary. The man who would endure anything, survive anything, escape from anything. But it's also what killed him, because there are some things you can't escape through willpower alone. The legacy of Houdini's final 24 hours extends beyond his death. It became a cautionary tale for performers, a reminder that pushing through pain has limits, that invincibility is an illusion, that even the strongest people have breaking points. Modern magicians study Houdini's death as a warning. The magic community emphasizes safety now in ways that didn't exist in Houdini's era. Medical screenings before dangerous stunts, mandatory safety teams, protocols for when performers are injured. David Blaine has spoken about how Houdini's death influenced his approach to endurance stunts, knowing when to stop, recognizing that permanent damage isn't worth temporary glory. Blaine has pulled out of stunts when medical teams advised it, something Houdini never did. Penn Jillette references Houdini's death when discussing the bullet catch, the importance of knowing limits, of respecting danger, of understanding that confidence doesn't make you invincible. Houdini thought he could power through a ruptured appendix. He was wrong. But there's another interpretation of Houdini's final hours, a less critical one. That he died doing what he loved, that performing was more important to him than living, that those final shows performed while dying represent the ultimate commitment to craft. Some magicians find that inspiring rather than tragic. The idea that Houdini valued magic so much he'd rather die on his feet than live in a hospital bed, that his final act was refusing to let mortality stop him from entertaining audiences. Both interpretations are valid. Houdini's death is simultaneously tragic and heroic, preventable and inevitable. A warning and an inspiration. The complexity is what makes it endure as a story nearly a century later. What's undeniable is that Houdini's final 24 hours define his legacy as much as any escape he performed. The man who could escape from anything couldn't escape his own nature, couldn't escape the drive that made him famous, couldn't escape the belief that stopping meant defeat. Harry Houdini died at 1:26 a.m. on Halloween 1926. But his presence in magic never died. His name is still the first one people think of when they hear the word magician. His escapes are still referenced as the gold standard. His dedication is still the model aspiring performers try to emulate. The final 24 hours show Houdini at his most human, not performing impossible escapes, not wowing audiences with strength and skill, just a man in a hospital bed, surrounded by family, facing the one thing he couldn't defeat. He died from a ruptured appendix caused by punches he should have had checked immediately. But he also died from being Houdini, from the mindset that weakness was unacceptable, that the show must always go on, that stopping for something as mundane as medical treatment was beneath him. That mindset created the legend, and that mindset killed the man. Both things are true simultaneously. Houdini's final day wasn't about magic tricks or death-defying escapes. It was about a performer facing mortality the only way he knew how, by refusing to surrender until his body literally couldn't continue. Medical records from Grace Hospital in Detroit document every detail: the failed surgery, the spreading infection, the final hours. It's all preserved. The death of magic's greatest performer is one of the most thoroughly documented deaths in entertainment history. But documentation doesn't diminish the impact. Knowing exactly how Houdini died doesn't make it less significant. If anything, the mundane medical reality makes it more tragic. The man who escaped from water torture cells and buried coffins died from an infection that modern medicine could cure with a few days of antibiotics. Halloween 1926, the date Houdini died. Every year on that date, magicians remember not just his death, but what it represented: the end of an era, the loss of someone irreplaceable, the reminder that even legends are mortal. If this revealed something unexpected about Houdini's final hours, subscribe right now. Next week explores modern escape artists and medietis and how they've learned from Houdini's mistakes, the safety protocols, the medical precautions, the difference between 1926 and today. Drop a comment below. Was Houdini's refusal to seek treatment heroic or foolish? Should he have stopped performing when injured, or was pushing through pain part of what made him legendary? Share honest thoughts. Hit that like button for more deep dives into magic history, the moments that defined the art, the performers who changed everything, the stories that still matter decades later. And remember, Houdini died because he wouldn't admit defeat, wouldn't acknowledge limits, wouldn't accept that some things can't be escaped through willpower. That's both inspiring and tragic, both admirable and cautionary, both the making of his legend and the cause of his death. That contradiction is what makes his story endure nearly a century later. See you in the next one.